Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers is a weekly program designed to answer all your questions, including the ones you didn't even know you had, and to clarify the endless debates around the wonderful and fascinating world of sexuality. Join us for real talk about sex from two experts in the field. Richard and Larry Siegel have over 50 years of experience as sex therapists, educators, counselors, and researchers. The Siegel Brothers are recognized around the world as trainers of medical and mental health professionals.
Hello and welcome to Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. I'm Larry Siegel, a clinical sexologist and certified sexuality educator.
And I'm Ricky Siegel, a certified sex therapist and supervisor.
And proud to say my brother.
Cheers to you.
Indeed, and to you as well.
Cheers to you for joining us this week.
Our traditional sake toast.
Larry's own apple pie sake this week.
That's right.
Nice.
That's
Keep,
right.
Getting more creative. This is really delicious.
So, yeah, that's a Fuji apple sake. I kind of infused with some cinnamon and vanilla bean.
This guy.
So, yeah, it is a nice little apple pie kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, been an interesting week, right? For those of you who are up north and for those of you here in Florida, it's been a cold week.
Mm-hmm. And everybody up north is complaining that we Floridians are complaining that it's cold, but tough. Sorry, 46 degrees is cold no matter where you are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So hopefully that's going to pass quickly, although hopefully a lot of you took advantage of that, stayed home, cuddled a little bit, got a little bit of that intimacy going, and, you know, it's good times could be had, even in the cold.
Well, especially in the cold, right?
Well,
Body
isn't
heat.
that, when we talk about the winter, which is that time for sort of nesting and coming together, and there really is sort of a winter syndrome that does bring people together sexually.
Nice.
Yeah. Cupping, I believe, is the term.
Huh.
Right? So hopefully there's happy cupping going on out there.
Right.
So good. We are in the winter, although we lose sight of that in Florida. Right? Except we get these little tastes. Mm-hmm. So what's been going on with you this week?
Oh, busy.
Mm-hmm.
Just another week in paradise.
Yes, indeed. Right.
Talking about sex every day.
Yeah.
And not a bad way to make a buck.
No, not an easy way, but it's certainly not a bad way. There
That's
are worse
for
ways
sure.
to make a living.
I play it down sometimes. Like I got this scam I'm getting away with. But it's not easy work. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
Some days.
Mm-hmm.
But it certainly is rewarding.
It is.
And after talking about sex all day, every day, we get together one night a week for this, our online YouTube Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers.
Yes, and again, we appreciate you joining us, and as usual, we would ask you to not only hit that like button and share button on Facebook, but also hit that subscribe button, the notification button as well, so you'll be apprised of what's coming up.
And your comments would be greatly appreciated. Let's get some conversation going.
Indeed.
And grow these threads.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I've been thinking about porn.
Mm-hmm. Here's a surprise.
And was late for work.
Yeah.
Almost didn't make it here. No, I and so many of the therapists that I supervise and so many sex therapists that we know, that's just part of the landscape today. More and more we see couples and individuals coming in with this complaint that porn is destroying their marriage, and people come in self-diagnosed porn addicts, or very often, maybe more often, partner-diagnosed porn addicts.
Right. More often than that, that's kind of what it is, right? The partner pulling them in on a leash.
What that means is most of the time, almost any porn use at all is automatically considered pathological and therefore an addiction. Right. And it's problematic. And it's problematic maybe not in the ways that people think it is, because it's not about the porn.
It almost never is.
We need to have more conversations. We need more sex talk about this country's relationship with porn, because it's hysterical, in a word.
And you know what? And I'm gonna misuse a word for our professional colleagues and those are your mental health professionals. Please indulge me on this.
Guess what word you're going to misuse.
Well, there's a schizophrenic aspect to it, because on the one hand, people are looking at porn as the be-all, end-all of all social ill, but at the same time, it is the almost exclusive source of information about sex and sexuality for so many people. I would say a majority of young people.
Yeah, we bemoan this fact often, that porn has become the de facto sexuality educators of our kids, because parents aren't doing the job, schools aren't doing the job. Very few adults in most kids' lives are doing the job. So of course they're left on their own. Of course, now 3 generations have grown up wired and online. And of course, in the absence of any other information, they're going to turn to what they think they need to know. And porn is the only kind, if you think about it, the only kind of entertainment where the viewer doesn't accept that what they're watching is strictly for their entertainment. Right. Nobody complains if they go to a NASCAR event to be entertained by professionals driving around a track at 300 miles an hour. They don't complain that they can't drive home like that. They don't think that they're supposed to drive like these professionals they're watching.
Exactly.
Because they know they'll kill themselves or somebody else or lose their license. And your little Toyota doesn't do 200 miles an hour like these $5 million cars do.
So in other words, there's an acknowledgement of the reality.
Yeah, but with porn it's all blurred, and people think, I gotta be like that, and I gotta do like that. And, those people are professionals, to say the least. Freaks sometimes, to say more. Not to mention all of the assistants, the pills and the shots and the icing and they're working harder than we are. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, that's true.
Making porn is not sexy. It's not fun. No. I doubt if anybody is really enjoying themselves.
Well, I don't know if that's true. I have to strongly disagree with that. And that's really that line that we have to draw with this conversation tonight.
Okay.
That there is porn where it is exploitive. There is porn where women in particular are lied to about what's going on. However, our topic tonight, if we're going to be talking about ethical porn and what that really means, then there's this whole other aspect of this industry that we have to look at and acknowledge is female-centric. It is absolutely feminist. It is the only industry where women are calling the shots and women are the ones in control. Right? Now, on the ethical side. Right. So there is.
But even so, yes, I agree with you, but I would still be surprised to hear women really enjoying themselves, having great orgasms.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that goes even back to, and again, I'm dating myself here, but I even remember when I was young, and our dear departed friend, Candida Royale, when she was still part of the industry, and some of the porn stars at the time. And I remember even back in the late 70s, Seika. If you're still around, I was a big fan. But I remember her, talking a lot about how she almost always got off. Right? And a lot of them really do. You'll find a lot of women. You talk to women in some of the big commercial companies. I think virtually everyone will tell you how much they enjoy it. It's a lot of this is why we're talking about what we're going to be talking about tonight, and this concept of ethical porn, because there really are two worlds. When you're in the commercial, legitimate business of porn, women are empowered. And the majority of women, I do believe, enjoy it. They love their work. Good. And they consider it work that they love. But when we're looking at some of the other, a lot of the amateur stuff, a lot of the shady stuff, you don't know where it's coming from that gets low, that's where we see the exploitation. Are there some women and girls who are trafficked into this? Yes. but not in the legitimate commercial aspect of the industry. And that's why, we have this term ethical porn, right? And what people can do. And, a good friend of ours, Dr. David Lay, we've had him on the show before, we'll have him on again at some point, wrote, I think, a very important book, right? Ethical Porn for Dicks. Right?
Great title.
It really is a great title.
Yeah.
But it really is about how men are the major consumers, right? But we also have to understand, and especially for, you thinking, self-proclaimed protectors of femininity, there really is a part of the porn industry that is very positive. And it may cost money. Right? That's one of those things too. So there really are ways for guys. 75% of porn consumers are men. 25% of porn consumers are women. So it's not that women are not part of this. Right? But if we're talking primarily to the male consumers, there are ways to do this ethically and do this with a clean conscience. And to do this in a way that fosters sex positivity and empowering women.
Right.
Right? So that's, I think, the formula that we want to focus on.
Okay.
I also want to say one thing real quick, going back to, again, you're referring to the way we look at porn as such a problem. And the statement you made about how porn is really never the issue. We both teach pharmacology and drug education, and we've used this analogy for the 30 years or so and more that we've been doing this work. That when you talk about drugs, right, and people have this way of saying it's a good drug or it's a bad drug. There is no such thing. There is no such thing as a good drug. There is no such thing as a bad drug. Drugs inherently have no value. The only way they get value is how they're used. If they're used in a way that's beneficial, it is beneficial. If they're used in a way that's harmful, there's harm. But it's not the drug, it's the use. And we can say exactly the same thing about porn. Right? When people like to blame porn for everything from erectile dysfunction to relationships ending, it's not the porn.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was coming at it slightly differently, just in thinking that with all of this hysterical focus on porn and blaming porn for everything, it allows us to continue ignoring what the real issue is, which is we're talking about masturbation.
Yeah,
Solo
yeah.
sex, right? The phrase looking at porn is so common and just as ridiculous as the phrase sleeping together.
Right.
They both show our discomfort and avoidance of talking about sex.
Right.
So the most common form of sexual expression of all humankind is the one we can't talk about, the one that everybody's too embarrassed to talk about. And the fact that porn is 99.99% of the time, anecdotally, associated with masturbation. I did meet a young kid.
Yeah, I know. That still blows my mind a little bit.
Baffled how a kid can tell me he started looking at porn at 16 and didn't masturbate to ejaculation until 21. I thought, where's that wheelbarrow you came in carrying your balls in? Because something's not adding up. To me, it's like going to a buffet when you're really hungry, looking at all the food, getting more hungry, and then leaving without eating anything. I think the same way about strip clubs.
Yes.
Like, unless you're going in the back where the illegal shady stuff is going on, why do people torture themselves?
Right.
Why go get all worked up and then leave?
Now, sometimes it's foreplay.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, sometimes it is used as foreplay, but yeah, you're right. More often than not, it really isn't. And it is like somebody having a good meal in front of you, just say here and just holding it in front of your nose.
No.
You can look at it. You can say, no, you can't taste it. You can't touch it.
Yeah.
So but
so that's the real disconnect and discomfort that I think couples don't talk about, don't want to talk about, aren't able to talk about. So it's just that much easier to say, oh, well, I busted him looking at porn, and that's the reason why our marriage is on the rocks, or why we don't have sex anymore. Maybe the reason the partner is looking at porn is because the couple doesn't have sex anymore, right? And so
Right.
to revert back to solo sex, if there's no partnered sex available, when did that become a disease? And why do we all agree to treat it, or too many in our professions agree to treat it like a disease? It's solo sex. It's how 99% of people learn about sex. I'm quite confident that most people have had their first orgasm alone.
Yeah.
Certainly most men.
Yeah.
And this fact of life just gets lost.
It really does.
Torch and pitchfork crowd. Let's stamp out the porn. Porn is ruining society.
Yeah. How? Okay.
It's entertainment.
Exactly.
It's like saying movies are ruining society or books are ruining society. There were times when people thought books were ruining society, and they burned them in huge bonfires, right?
Yes, absolutely. But to your point, it's the word that comes up to my mind is relationship. What is the person's relationship to porn? And I think a lot of that outcry and that knee-jerk response is, wait a minute, you're having a relation, you're getting turned on by that and not by me. Right? You have a relationship with these images that is sexually gratifying, and you're not doing it with me.
You're cheating.
Right.
This
and
is an affair.
And this is where I think that so many people characterize this as this epidemic of this kind of infidelity, and how many professionals would refer to that as emotional infidelity.
Yep.
All right. So I mean, what's the answer? As far as I'm concerned, very simple: grow the fuck up. I mean, that really is what it comes down to. People masturbate, kids masturbate, children masturbate. Animals masturbate. Everybody masturbates. Get over it.
Certain dog we once knew used to like to masturbate when company came over.
That's right.
Oh, only when company came over. She was
an exhibitionist.
Didn't see too many female dogs
and she really went at it.
Especially in company.
Yeah, that's right.
In front of company.
Right. So, this is
Mom
really
was
not
so
anything
mortified.
new. Oh, she really... But you're right, never alone. Only when there's company, and she would situate herself right in front of where everybody was. So,
Claws digging into the carpet,
so,
I remember.
So again, none of this is new. There's nothing anybody does today that has not been done for thousands of years. And you know what? For the most part, as the point we're just kind of making here, not even strictly human. Right? There's none of these things that we do that we can even call human exclusively.
Yep.
So get over it. That's the biggest problem. People masturbate. And if you have a partner who masturbates, it doesn't mean they're not turned on by you, right? How many people get bent out of shape? Say, wait a minute, we just had sex, and now you're looking at porn and you're masturbating again? Am I not satisfying?
Well, that's the biggest misconception,
Both.
that people think, especially partners, and I'll be sexist for a minute, and more often than not, it's women who find that women who are partnered with men, there's this bust, which I always have a problem with. Anyway, that's another discussion. Lovers don't bust one another, they discover. And if it's this kind of oops, not the most smooth discovery, then there's often shock and surprise, although I'm still a little bit shocked and surprised myself how often there's such a strong reaction to, oh my God.
Well, it's a sense of betrayal.
There's porn on the internet and men look at it. Like, yeah, women do too. Where the hell you been?
Yeah, exactly.
It's 2021. 25 years that we've had access to high-def 24/7 streaming porn. But that sense that if my partner's looking at that, that's what he's really into, and I can't compete with that.
Yeah.
So therefore, that's what makes it the bigger betrayal sometimes. In the sense that trying to compete with some two-dimensional image.
Right. Which, again, I would say is the equivalent of going out to a restaurant, being served food that somebody else made, saying, ooh, I really like this. Oh, what, you don't like my cooking? I'm not a good enough cook for you?
It's a good analogy. Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, it really is. And, this is not something that just a few perverted people do. Right? Let me just give you some numbers here. And this comes from Pornhub. Not that Pornhub is the be-all, end-all, but it is
They do keep the best statistics.
They keep data.
Yeah,
they really do.
It is a wealth of data.
It truly is. And by the way, it's a platform, not a purveyor. Right? We also have to get that one clear. So according to Pornhub, basically you're talking about a single year, and this just goes for 2017. I was just looking at it. It was just more easily available to me. But they've been very, very consistent. In 2017, there were a total of about 29 billion visits to the site, which comes down to 81 million visits a day, 4 million visits an hour, which really comes down to about 800 per second. So just in the time that we have been talking, probably about 1 million people have just gotten off watching porn. Just in that amount of time. Right? So this is pervasive. And again, like I said, there's certainly the majority of men, about 75% are men, but 25% are women. But the biggest thing that people, I think, would be surprised about, because with all of this spending so much time, it's ruining our relationships. You would think that these guys are spending hours and hours on porn to the exclusion of everything else in their lives. What's the average amount of time people spend watching porn and masturbating?
10 minutes?
10 minutes. Right? Now, we break it down in the United States, and this is another interesting little tidbit, thank you Pornhub, that if you look at the most conservative right-wing states, usually some of those southern states, you have the highest rate of watching. You spend an average of 11 minutes on your porn.
Red sex, blue sex.
That's right. That's right. The more liberal states, more liberal areas spend 9 to 10. But the most conservative people are spending a full 11 minutes. Right? It takes you longer than that to read an email, I'm sure.
Well, how much time does the average American spend in front of the television every night? Something like 4 or 5 hours?
Yep.
Average.
Yep.
Right?
Right? So again, there's a perspective that is really necessary on all of this. Right? So it's not the kind of time suck that almost any other internet thing. Now, granted, people may go on more than one time a day.
Yeah, well, I bet people spend more time, more than 11 minutes on Facebook.
Yeah,
and more than
that's
once
the
a
thing,
day.
Right?
Yeah.
How about you sports junkies? How much time do you spend with your sporting games and fantasy leagues and all that kind of stuff? I guarantee it is far and away much more time than anybody could possibly spend with porn.
But it's porn.
That's the thing. It's porn. All right. Now, we've used this term a couple of times in the beginning of this conversation, ethical porn. So given that we know so many people, right? Again, it's not 29 billion visits just to Pornhub. Forget about all the other. There's like 4 other top sites as well. So 29 billion people. Now, this is not like 30 people doing this billions of times. This is a lot of people around the world. All right. So given that it is so pervasive, let's talk about what ethical porn really means. Because I think a lot of people are thrown off just by that concept and that term.
Okay.
All right. So what does it mean? Right? What is ethical porn versus other kind of porn?
Well,
Non-ethical
like
porn.
you were referring to before, porn that's exploitive and just has a look to it that the performers are not enjoying themselves or are being taken advantage of or exploited, or this trend of choking and I think that's what upsets a lot of people the most. Porn that seems to be degrading to women, forceful oral sex and this kind of behavior that I think if there's a gut feeling to what you're watching besides the arousal and excitement you're looking for. People should be able to have a barometer that they trust, that they feel good about what they're looking at, or they feel a little sleazy, like they're participating in something they know they shouldn't be.
Right. It's like how I used to differentiate between porn and erotica. Often that difference. And again, it's totally arbitrary, but what I used to say is, if you're watching it and you're interested, you find yourself leaning in, you want to know where this is going, it's probably erotica. But if you're watching it and you're worried about somebody walking in, or you're worrying about somebody finding out, it's probably porn.
There was a study, I forgot who did it, but they had cameras looking at, I think it was men, looking at their faces while they were looking at porn and trying to analyze the whole kind of emotional range, and how many guys looked like angry or kind of shocked, all this variety of facial expressions that were kind of a surprise. Emotions, or apparent emotions that one wouldn't expect from someone looking at porn.
Right.
But that point... Yeah.
So and I think that's an important one, because it does relate. The viewer's experience does relate to the performer's experience. So this idea of ethical porn, like you said, it's obvious that the performers are enjoying it. They're there. Their boundaries, their needs, their pleasure, it's all part of that. It's real. And that's a big part of that ethical porn, that it's kind of real. It's also inclusive. Porn, so much porn, and again, the perfect body, the perfect this, and these unrealistic standards, and, again, the just piles and piles of plastic surgery that goes into a lot of that kind of stuff. Ethical porn shows sort of a diverse range of bodies and people and experiences. Ethical porn is not just for men. It's actually for everybody, and free for everybody to enjoy. And I think a big part of ethical porn is that the performers, right, usually the women, and again, women get paid more than men. But that's an important part of this. What makes this a legitimate ethical industry is that they are getting paid fairly. They're treated fairly. Right? Which also means, if you want to be a consumer of ethical porn, or would it be an ethical porn consumer, you may have to pay for it. Right? It may cost you a little bit of money. You may need to subscribe, because, again, if it's ethical, it's a legitimate production company, they're legitimate actors, they got to get paid.
Would you say this point parallels the treatment of women with legal brothels versus the
Yes, I
almost
would.
inevitable exploitation that comes from illegal prostitution?
Yes, I would.
I've believed for many years that the reason why we don't hear very much about the Mustang Ranch and the Bunny Ranch and these other legal brothels in Nevada, notice not in Las Vegas, out in the desert.
Right, it's illegal in Las Vegas.
But I think the reason we don't hear about it is because it works.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure we'd be hearing about it all the time if there was problems with it. But like you said, so I thought of it while you were saying, the women are well taken care of.
Yes.
Very well protected. Benefits. They're really taken care of. And it's an ethical practice.
Yes.
But,
and it's consensual. That's the thing. And it's a choice. And they are free to make that choice. Right? Now, again, to be clear, right? Don't want anybody trolling us now saying that we are promoting sex trafficking and the servitude of women. No, making a very clear distinction that there is a whole range and aspect of the porn industry that is legitimate and empowering and consensual and there for women to freely choose. There is a seedy underground, right? Like there is in every kind of industry. And the only real way to do something about that is to not be a consumer of it.
Yeah.
People make that kind of porn because people are buying and watching that kind of porn.
I hate to bring up another concept when we're going to start wrapping up, but I like to relate it to this idea of porn literacy.
Yes.
and being able to talk about it, being able to talk to young people about it,
That's key.
Instead of pretending that if we don't bring it up, they'll never be curious. And yeah, we could. I think society in general could benefit from accepting certain realities instead of just
define that term if you could. Porn literacy.
being able to describe what it is. This what we're talking about. This fantasy, this form of entertainment. Being able to differentiate what we're describing as ethical porn versus not, and being able to include it in sexuality education and discussions of pleasure and a reality, right? Especially with young people, a reality that it's part of the world, it's part of the internet, and they need to be aware of what they're looking at and what perhaps they shouldn't be looking at. But just anything other than pretending or admonishing. Don't look at it, or you'll become an addict, and your life will be destroyed.
That's right. That's right. And indignation won't make it go away.
Yeah.
Right? It really won't.
Yeah.
And think that you're making such an important point. That literacy, that ability to be able to talk about this, to acknowledge reality. That's all we're asking people to do. Acknowledging reality. That's like saying, I'm not comfortable with it. I don't like it, so I'm going to pretend it doesn't exist. It just doesn't work. Right? It really doesn't work. We have to acknowledge it. Yeah. And again, the point that you're making is so important about being able to talk with young people about it, being able to educate kids. Right? And I think I've said this before, and I think I've said this admonishingly and even pointing my finger to you parents. Those of you that have the biggest problem with porn, and the fact that young people are so connected to porn, I think I remember reading a survey that college and high school students, more than 90%, not only view it as educational, but think of it as educational. Right? So parents, that's your fault.
Yeah.
That's not porn, and that's not the kids. That's on you, and that's your refusal to be accessible to them, to have information that you can share with them, to talk to them, because you're the one that made porn online the only accessible avenue for these kids to get information.
I remember another study where they asked kids, what percentage of kids have seen this kind of porn, that kind of porn, this kind, and then they asked the parents what their kids have seen.
Yes.
And holy cow, it couldn't have been more off the mark. Parents, it was like less than 10%.
Right.
Who thought, yeah, I think my kids have never seen this.
Yeah.
Yeah, guess again.
Yes. Right. So, porn is part of our world. Porn is part of our life. And
masturbation is part of human sexuality, right?
Exactly.
Get over that too, holy rollers and people who think every sperm is sacred.
Yeah.
A little Monty Python reference for you.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. So I think every sperm is sacred is a good point to end on.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that. Indeed. And cheers to you. Thank you again for joining us this week and every week for Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers.
We'd love to see your comments about our discussion on porn and please add to the discussion.
Absolutely. And let's let it continue. So thank you all for watching.
We'll be here next Friday and every Friday at 7 p.m. East Coast time for more Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers.
You take care and stay well.
Thanks for watching Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. Join us each week on Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can also follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay on top of the latest developments in the ever-changing world of sex and sexuality.